Welcome back to Open Door Conversations. This is your co-host, Renata.
And your other co-host, Fatima. Hello, hello.
Hello. This is episode 9. And today we have decided to talk about the therapy experience. That's the episode title today. And so let's get started.
So for those of you that might have been with us over a couple of episodes, it's like, interesting. So they've done all of those other topics, and now they want to talk about the therapy experience. Well, it might seem a little backwards, but we wanted to help you all understand actually the therapy experience. By going through some of the topics that we've discussed are actual things that we've seen within our community, as well as dealt with some of our clients. And so on this episode of the therapy experience is just that. Searching for a therapist, questions to ask, how do you know you found the right one, your consultations. There's a lot of things that people don't think about when it comes to the therapy experience and finding the right therapist. It's interesting because and I appreciate it, but some of mine have been like, well, you had a friendly face on the site. Okay.
Right.
That's good. I'm glad I had a friendly face. However, that really doesn't tell you a lot about. You can read my bio, you can read all day long. But when you come into a consultation with me, I need to know first, have you been in therapy before? What was that experience like? If you had been, why did you stop? Or why do you feel the need to go back? There's so many questions that your therapist should be asking you, almost like if you're in a session, for you to get an understanding of if this is the right fit for you. At least that's my experience. What do you think, Nada?
I would agree. I would foot stomp all of that. And then I'd also say, as much as they're going to ask you questions, I think the client should be asking questions too. I think one of the most important aspects to like the therapy experience is the initial like contact or consultation. I know some therapists that I'm familiar with in my local area tell me that they don't even offer like consultations. And I'm like, wait, what? I think that is absolutely important. And from the start, I'll give people an example. Not every therapist is going to be the same. And I will tell you, the more that I go along in private practice, that my military experience, being in, what the Air Force called personnel and the, private sector calls HR, I would say being in that arena really taught me professionally the importance of customer service. Absolutely. And so I think that from the moment you reach out to a clinician, that should set the tone for your entire experience with them. And I want people to know, like, she takes this serious. This is not like, she not just kind of flip it with the process. So, I think the consultation is important. And I ask specific questions, of them. And I say, hey, here's what you should be considering on this call with me. Does my style fit what you're looking for? Because I'm going to ask you what you're coming in for. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think is most important to share with clients is, if you were to work with me, based on what you shared, here's what I think would be helpful. Here are the type of interventions I think would be helpful. Here's a little bit about my style and how I operate. Do you think that would be a good fit for you? And you should be analyzing everything, because everybody who knows me, I show up the same way. I show up the same way. And so I'm showing up that same way on the consult call. Is going to be the same way in sessions. I let people know, it's like, look, I don't beat around the bush. I'm straightforward. Yet I try to do that always in grace and love, but I don't want you to be stuck. And if you don't mind somebody pushing you a little bit, then I might be a good fit for you.
And it's so funny that you say that. And that's one thing that I have always loved and admired about our relationship,
Oh,
our sisterhood,
oh, yeah.
is like you said, if you know me, I'm showing up the same way. So it's almost like I'm matching energy. So if you
Mhm.
come in and you on 10, I'm gonna help you come back down, because what I'm gonna let you know what we're not gonna do. But see, that's the type of therapist that I am, so that I can relate to you and you can relate to me. There is no that you're coming into me and that I'm superior. No, we are going to walk through this journey at your pace, at the level that you need to go through. But to your point, I'm not going to allow you to be stuck. So if there are times where I do have to confront you, again, as you said, it's going to be in grace and in love. If there's times where you need to be redirected, it will be done in grace and love. And just as you said, that is one thing that I will say in my consultation. Like, look, this is how I do things. If
Right.
you are okay with that and you think you can do it,
Come
hey,
on.
I'm right there with you. Let's get this journey started.
Mhm.
But that, I think that is so important for people to understand
Mhm.
also during the consultation, because you can get people that don't like confrontation or
Yes.
don't like to be questioned.
Mhm.
And therapy, there's a lot of that, you
Tons of
know.
it. It's the whole experience.
It's the whole experience. But if you don't like that, and that's not the type of therapist that you need, I know that neither one of us wants you to come into a session or multiple sessions uncomfortable, number one,
Yeah.
and not feeling as though you're moving ahead
Right.
because you cannot relate to your therapist.
Absolutely. From the consult, I tell people when they come in for the intake, that's the first session where you're doing a lot of things like talking about your story, gathering history. Mine is somewhat, I would say, informal. Like I know when I was coming out of grad school, they had us do a whole sheet of paper checking off all this stuff. I'm like, this is so not real.
Girl,
This nobody like this is too formal. And so people realize, but I let people know in the first session, I'm like, look, I have a lot of stuff I have to cover, like the have tos legally, ethically. But then I let people know, here's what the first session is like. So people aren't blindsided. Like you're going to come in. This could be the very first time you've come to therapy. This could be the first time you're telling your story. So please don't feel like you got to be on a certain topic and a certain task and it got to be organized, because I recognize that most people are coming therapy in crisis.
in crisis, yes.
And so you're probably in crisis for the first 2 months.
That part, and getting that understanding that I am not going to be quote unquote fixed. I'm not going to be better. No, the first 2 months, we probably are just getting to the fourth or fifth layer before we get to the surface.
Exactly.
Because,
You just learning to breathe. Like you're still like on 10, and
yes,
you don't really, when you think about the therapy experience, I let people know in the first session, you are probably so ramped. You probably still, your blood is just like circulating. Like, there's a lot going on. But here's the thing you should know. I said, here's what you should feel in this experience with me. Non-judged, safe, like this is a place where you can feel like you can share what you need to share and there's no judgment here. You should be experiencing and feeling like this is a safe place for you and that you have my undivided attention and that you feel heard. And I tell people, I was like, my style is not for everybody. And I know that. And here's the thing to the listening audience, your feelings matter most. How you feel in that session, in that environment is most important. I tell the clients I work with, if I'm not your jam, that's all right. This is not about my feelings. And you should know that. You should be analyzing whether or not my style works for what you're looking for and what you feel like you need in this season. If it's not, that is okay. Please don't feel bad. It's not about me. If I can help you find the right person, I'm open to doing that. But you should be checking that when you start on your journey with the therapist. Is this person the right fit for me? Do I feel like I'm heard? Are they hearing me? Do they get me? Do I feel safe in that space emotionally? Do I feel like this is a healthy experience for me? Do I feel like I'm going to get what I need? Some people don't like homework, but your therapist is the one who always got sheets. I asked people that on the consultation. I was like, you've been to therapy before? They say, yeah. I say, well, what worked for you and what didn't work for you? This is not about the therapist themselves. It's about the experience. You know, like, what's your learning style? Are you auditory? Are you more kinesthetic, like hands-on? Do you like to write things out? I would like to know that, because that's going to shift my experience and what I provide to you. There's two clients I have now in my case. They absolutely don't want anything to do. Don't give me a book. Don't give me a sheet. No handouts. No exercises. I don't want any of that. I just want to be able to process. Okay, that's what you want. And so I think the good thing is our field is moving more into, like, I think they used to call it like, I'm an eclectic. No, you're more client centered. And that just means, how do I understand more about you as the client and what your needs are and how you process and what works best for you. And then I create treatment around what's going to work for you.
Absolutely. I love all of that. And I think that everything that you said is so important. Like, I have a young lady and I just adore her. She's 17 and she tells me all the time, she's like, I know, Miss Fatima, I'm not supposed to be like this and we can't think like this, but you're like my best friend. She's like, and I just can't wait till we have our sessions so I could talk to you and I could tell you everything that's going on and then we could talk about it and then I could tell you some more. She was like, but I know I can't say that. It's not supposed to be like that, but you're my best friend. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, that is too cute. But those, like you said, those are the type of things that you want. You know, definitely there are the client therapist relationships, right? And that we will always be mindful of. But because there are those ethical boundaries, does not mean that you should still not feel, as you said, safe and not judged with your therapist, that you should not feel a connection. If you don't feel a connection with that person, how can you trust them to guide you through that healing place?
Right.
And that is something that is so important. And being able to, if you can't be vulnerable with anyone else, being able to be vulnerable with your therapist is so very important.
It is. Ooh, that brings me to another point. You said something that really kind of triggered a thought for me. That here's the thing too, that I think I would encourage, anyone considering therapy to consider. That if you've been in situations, relationships, experiences where you've been hurt or violated, or you've experienced offense, it is likely that you may have a particular lens about people. What does that look like? You may feel like you can't trust people. And sometimes that could cloud your experience, not all the time, but I'm just saying, be watchful, be mindful that your experience is not clouded by the things that have happened to you in the past. Because, and I've let people know, realistically, you're going to come into a space. It takes a lot of courage to come and talk to somebody who you don't have any idea who they are, right? And you're about to air all of the things that you've experienced. And you don't know this person from Adam. And yet you're about to share these deep, dark things that have happened, or what your thoughts are, or your feelings are about something. And I'll say it may feel unnatural to just come in and kind of quote, trust that process. But I also say these people are professionals, they're licensed, they go through a lot of years of schooling and a lot of years of, collecting face-to-face, client hours. And they got to sit under a lot of theoretical information and knowledge and have a lot of hands-on experience. And so, and it's all supervised, by the way,
Yes.
our time. So when you think about that, keep that in the back of your mind that this is, a helping profession, not unlike you going to a doctor or something like that. You don't know those people initially, and you got to trust that they're, going to operate behind their professional ethics. But just know that sometimes you're coming to that experience that there is an element of, I'm going to say blind trust maybe, but it can also be clouded if you've experienced, and so I would say just check that, watch that, be mindful of it, because it could also hinder your ability to get the help or support that you need.
And one thing that I want to also suggest, and you hit on it as well, is this is your journey.
Right.
If you do not feel comfortable, it's okay to leave. It's okay to seek another therapist. Because
Absolutely.
again, this is your journey. This is your life. As Nada said, you are about to go in there, as someone told me, therapists are just nosy. Well, in order to assist, in order to go on this journey with you, we have to be nosy, and if you get to a point to where you really still don't feel comfortable sharing with your therapist, it is time to find another therapist, because to Nada's point, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to stay stuck where you're at. And I think we tend to hold those in those type of positions as, I don't want to say superior, but not more knowledgeable than us. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just not, giving them enough information. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. That could be a small part of it, but maybe you just aren't connecting enough to where you feel comfortable sharing with that individual. And right. I think that, that is so important to understand. It's okay to leave. But you had said something that's interesting. What do you do when you do go to a therapist and all they're talking about is theory and you're like, what? Huh?
Yeah. I love the people. I say, it's okay for you to ask me examples. I know in some programs, they tell you that they tell the therapist, it's not okay for you to self-disclose. And I'm like, bananas. I know the ethical guidelines around that, ethical principles around that. But I think that if you don't share, like I tell my clients, I was like, no, I do. I self-disclose in a healthy way. It's not about me sharing my experience to have therapy, because that's unethical. But if I've overcome something, if I've had a situation, I've looked at and I've been able to implement certain tools or strategies or whatever, or I've had a similar experience, I won't tell them the details. I'll just say, oh yeah, I know all too well what that feels like. Here's some examples. Here's clinically what that looks like in terms of putting interventions into practice. I know that people can feel when all somebody is talking about is from a theoretical place, which is just the information, the knowledge, or the textbook, right? If all you telling me on the other side of that couch is something out of a textbook, people know that, they feel that, right? You want to have a connection with your clinician that you feel like, you know what, I'm moving past the things that I've experienced. Like they're able to help me to apply. Like one of the things that I do a lot of times, I give people examples. They may not always be my examples of how I went over something, but I try and give people examples so that they can see what that looks like. And I'm talking about real life examples.
Right.
Or I'll use something they've used before. Like, remember when this and happened? I'm like, oh yeah, remember when you shared this? Well, let's use that if you allow. Oh yeah. And let's see how we can implement that. Those are ways that, people can kind of, I think, get something beyond the textbook knowledge that is sometimes just thrown out from the chair to the couch,
And I like that. And I'm with you. I am definitely okay with the self-disclosure. It's not all about, oh, let me tell you about my life, but it's helping to put into perspective, that so many things you're not alone.
Right.
You're not alone. Just because I'm on this side,
Right.
I I'm on this side for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I was in your shoes. I'm still in your shoes. Just really quick, just today I had a client. She was saying, that everybody thinks she's so weird because she likes to have the kitchen clean and she likes to see a clean sink. And she's like, they're always telling me just to stop doing the dishes. And I said, no, I said, just a little bit of self-disclosure. I said, my daughter is the same way. Like, to her, there's something about a clean kitchen. And I said, so it's okay. You like what you like. I said, the only time we have to be concerned about it is if it becomes an obsessive behavior. So if like someone puts a fork in there, you have to go clean it, or, those type of things. I said, but because you like a clean kitchen, you are not weird. You are not different,
Right.
and so, again, like you said, that's just an example of being able to implement self-disclosure. Like, no, we had lives, families, everything else, just like, friends, just like you.
Right.
And so it's important for them to understand that and see that.
Right. I know we
So,
feel like bouncing around. I had a question though.
mhm,
If it's okay, let us talk a little bit about how do you find the therapist?
that was going to be my question. I was going to
Oh,
ask
like,
that to you.
yes, I know, because we always thinking alike.
Because when I said so, that was going to be my question.
Listen, okay, I will tell you, a lot of people have, I don't know if this is your experience, but I know a lot of people are either A, they don't know where to look, B, they're looking and people don't get back to them, or C, they just are completely like, I've done this, I tried it there. Should I, to your point, yes, you should keep looking. What are some places, like, how do people find a clinician? Because we talked, I think, a little bit about like what to kind of expect in that initial contact, some of the things that, you want it to feel like it's a business, right?
Yeah.
Not like so structured and whatever, but like I take the time. I use a website where people can book a consultation because I think the consultation is important.
Mhm.
And I put on there, I make sure that I word things so people are like that. I'm taking aside time, like I want you to book. Why? Because I want to dedicate time to making sure that we are uninterrupted when we do this consult. So I put language in there, like when people, I don't have an automatic set up yet, but when people book, I let them know, yes, I got it. And I'm going to give you a call or we can set a video on that day. But how do people find me? How do people look for you? How do people look for a therapist in their area?
Naturally, of course, we would say the websites, but then, and you know what, I take that back. That's my apology. I say naturally we would say that, but to your point, a lot of people don't know about those websites. They don't know they exist.
That's true.
So, of course, the main one, there's Psychology Today, there's therapist.com. There are mental health agencies within their counties, within their cities, within their communities. The Jewish and Catholic charities, they do a lot of pro bono mental health services.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and I think, what, that is so important for people to understand.
Yeah.
Jewish and Catholic services is for everyone. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be Catholic. It is just the name of the charities.
Yes.
But they are charities, nonprofit, but they have an insurmountable amount of mental health resources that are free to the community. And
Yeah.
so I strongly urge you that if you are searching for a clinician in your area and you do not have the funds or the insurance to pay for it, they can definitely help you in your search. So I do want to make sure that that is understood.
And they are usually nationwide.
Yes.
Yeah. Salvation Army, I hear, also has like services, mental health services. You can also search through, you maybe do a Google search and just search counseling agencies in my area. They sometimes will offer what is called a sliding scale, and sliding scale just means a range, right? If you make income between this and this, then this will be the amount, or this and this will be the amount. And sometimes they may check your income statements and stuff like that. And sometimes they won't. Some people offer sliding scale or ability to pay. Some churches now, I know in our area, like there are a lot of churches around here that offer counseling agencies within their ministries. And I will tell you, for our people, I don't see that a lot. I do not see it a lot. I will tell you, in the city of, Sacramento, where I live at, I mean, there's pockets, they call them all these little different cities. I just call the whole place Sacramento. But I will tell you, in the more affluent places, those churches have services. Anybody can go, and you don't have to attend the church. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have, right? But a lot of them do. But in our community, I don't know of one in our city that offers services. Now, the church that we are affiliated with out in Fairfield, they have an entire ministry, entire social service component separate from the church, called TLC Family Services. If you're in the California area and you're near Fairfield, Vacaville, or I'll throw it out there, they offer a gaggle of things, right? Any and everything you probably think of in terms of social service. But we're just wanting to make sure, have the conversation around, how do you find what you need? Referrals, Facebook groups, Instagram, TikTok. You can be a part of like these different groups. I know I'm working with somebody who said, hey, I had no idea where to start. I went out on a Facebook group and I was like, do you guys know of any professional, particularly African-American therapists in this area? And the lady's like, somebody gave me your name. And I was like, oh, mind me asking, because I asked that question too. How did you hear about me, or how did you learn of me? And they were like, oh, I heard from you about somebody, such and such, such and such. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know that person. Like, I don't know that person. I don't know how that person met me. Like, I have no idea at all to this day. But you can do that. Like, I am hearing more and more people are finding in their own networks. Hey, do you hear?
It's and you're so right about that, because so I had a client, and I started seeing her. So then she told her cousin. So then I started seeing the cousin.
Oh, yeah.
And then the cousin told her best friend. So then now I'm seeing the best friend. So like you said, we are in need, and we do desire that. But it's what we do in our community. You try it first and let me know how it goes. Then I'll try it. Who can you recommend? I need you to recommend somebody. So to your point on someone that recommended you, like, hey, I saw maybe, a post, or she heard about you from someone else and was like, I know this person. And, again, like you said, referrals. And also our primary care physicians or our nurse practitioners can give referrals as well.
Yeah. That's so true. And I don't know if there's therapists out there that are listening like that too. Like, a lot of people are looking for clinicians of color. How do we get our information out there so that people in our community can find the people of color? Because I work with a lot of great clinicians who are not people of color. And yet people of color are looking for people of color, because people that are not of color don't understand some of the struggles that we go through. And so I think it's really important. I think one of the other things is look for groups. That's something that, we talk about all the time. How can we provide some support to the people in our community if they can't afford like ongoing therapy? Here's one. It may not even be an issue of affordability. It may just be an issue of time. And so if you have like, weekends or groups or something like that we can offer, that may be, another thing. So we're just wanting to make sure that we kind of talk to the therapy experience and what we can, how people can find services and supports. I know we talked a little bit about what to expect, on the initial. Before we close out, one thing I want to let people know too is I think we had a note down to kind of talk a little bit about what to expect. And one thing I want people to know is that generally, not all clinicians operate this way, but generally, treatment isn't about 3 phases, right? You have the initial phase where people are collecting information, you're talking through, you're getting through crisis, you're just kind of learning some things, coping skills or things to kind of get you through. But it's really about like just history and learning about who you are, building the relationship, all of those things, ruling out, could this be a medical issue, not mental health? All of that is in the first phase. The second phase of treatment is, okay, in the first, we came out of all of that with a plan of treatment. And then the second phase is putting it into action. And so if you don't do your work, you could be recommended being there for a long time. If you don't do your work, please don't blame it on my colleagues or my professional peers. But that can take a long time, depending upon what the issues are that forgive me, because I usually always hate to call it issues. I always say challenges because they can be overcome.
And before you get to your third point, I just want to emphasize on the doing the work part, because you can be terminated from counseling services as well for not doing the work. If your therapist is continuing to pour into you and you aren't doing the work, you aren't doing the homework, you aren't putting in the action, the clinician does as well have the right to terminate you for non-participation. Just because you're going and talking doesn't mean you're doing the work.
Right.
And then to your last point, sorry.
No. I think that's really good because sometimes people don't realize, and that's where the people like us kind of give you a little push. Say, hey, now we've been here. Talk to me about why we're stuck.
Right, that part.
Are you ready to move on?
Seems like you like it here.
What's going on? Yeah. And then lastly is what we call, to Tima's point, I call it the graduation. In school, they call it termination, but I call it the graduation phase, right? You graduate on because what you wanted to work on, you've done it, you've seen some success, you feel good, you move on. That does never mean you can't go back to therapy, right? New stuff happens, new situations happen. Some people come for tune-ups, whatever, right? You can always come back, but at least you can graduate on from the experience that you had. So I don't know. Anything else?
I think that's it.
I feel like this is more informative than convo, but a little bit of convo.
A little bit of convo, but I think it was needed. It was necessary.
I'd agree. I hope everyone, feels that way in terms of like what to anticipate, what to expect, what are some things that you want to cover, what are some questions you can ask. You can ask your clinician about their experience. How long have they been practicing? How long have they, what experience have they had with the particular situation you're coming in with, that type of thing. So those are all questions. And the clinician can tell you like, wow, sorry, unfortunately, that's not something that we can talk about or I can disclose, but feel free, ask them and they'll let you know, if they're not able to answer those. But hopefully this was helpful. We really appreciate you guys joining us again for another episode of Open Door Conversation. As always, you can hit us up on email or our handles at Open Door Convo. Email is opendoorconvo@gmail.com. And we bid you adieu and we hope you come back again.
Yes, on the next